Navigating conflict in real time, strategies for handling conflict in the moment. Question for you. Ever find yourself in a problem solving meeting and a big old argument breaks out? How do you feel in that moment? Overwhelmed, frozen, don't know what to do, annoyed that it's happening again, right? What are the things that you're normally feeling in that moment and what do you do? What do you normally do to try to manage that moment? Well, we're going to dive into some things that might help you out. And conflict can break out for so many reasons. So we have a whole nother video that just dives into a bunch of the reasons of why there are a lot of challenges that occur when collaboratively problem solving. So we're not going to dive into that in this video. We have a whole video just identifying all those challenges where conflict occurs. But the objective for this video is to learn a few processes to navigate conflict both in the moment and afterwards. So one of the things that really helps is to set the stage well before the meeting really starts. So an easy thing you can do is normalize conflict. Just let people know, hey, when people come together and try to figure something out, it's super normal for tensions to rise. So just let them know that that's a normal thing, that is everywhere, that's the human condition, and that's okay. Then tell them what you'll do when it happens. So once that happens, I'll pause the group, slow things down, and get us back on track. This gives people a good sense of clarity, and it makes it easier for you to take charge when the conflict occurs. Okay, so that's when you set the stage like that, it makes it a whole lot easier to manage down the road. Side note, this goes for any kind of challenge that you think might be happening with a group. Whatever the issue or challenge is, bring it up beforehand so that you can normalize the issue, creating a feeling of trust, and it just makes it very easy to handle in the moment. So, for example, another example is I facilitate design sprints. Very intensive, very fast moving. So I let people know there are going to be times where I stop you short and you're going to be annoyed because you feel like we didn't dive in deep enough. That's a normal part of the process. There's going to be times where you feel a little confused. That's a normal part of the process. So any kind of challenge that they're going to hit along the way, I let them know beforehand that it's going to happen and that it's normal. And then when it does happen, I just say, hey, remember that time I told you about it? Welcome to it. And people actually laugh at that moment. It eases the tension, and then we just move forward way smoother. So this in itself is extremely helpful. All right, during the meeting, people are starting to get in the conflict. First step, pause, time out, hold up, right? Hey, folks, let's just pause for a second. So it's up to us as leaders to take charge of the moment. And this is one of the most gentle ways to interrupt is saying, hey, let's pause. You can use other language, but I found that to be really easy to use in that moment. Then tell them how this is impacting you in the group, especially if it's a bigger conflict. Hey, I'm having a hard time hearing both of you, and I feel a little lost, and I don't think I'm alone in that. Right. So helping them see beyond their immediate conflict to, oh, right, we're here with a group of people and we're throwing everybody off. So it helps them kind of get out of the conflict a little bit more and help them see the bigger picture that's happening. And then affirm them. Hey, what you both have to say is super important. And I want to hear what you're trying to say. So always affirm them to let them know they're not bad, that what they're really trying to get to is important, and it helps them feel like heard, it helps them feel understood, and it makes them feel more, it's easy to get engaged with them rather than me trying to shut them down and they feel like it's important. It's like this thing that's bubbling up that they need to just get out. Hey, it is important. And we actually want to hear what you have to say. So let's try something different. And then this has been really helpful is to succinctly get the two parties to a mutual understanding. Simple way to do that. John, 2 sentences. Tell Frank what you're really trying to say. After that, Frank, I want you to reflect back what you heard and ask if there was anything they missed, and then switch it. This helps to try to get rid of all the noise to get to the signal, the main thing that they're really trying to communicate, because that's what conflict is. A lot of times is people trying to communicate and there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's other forms as well, but that's a big part of it. And so 2 sentences, reflect, make sure that's what you're trying to say. I found that that's really simple. It gets to the root and it makes things easy to move forward. They're like, okay, got it. Then that's it. Like, unless it's a huge conflict, we're pretty much able to move forward from there because it's about being understood. Now, again, it slows things down. It gets to the core of what's being said. And as a side note, after the mutual understanding, the two might feel a little stuck and kind of not sure where to go regarding the topic itself, right? So they feel a little, a little lost in the moment. This is a great time to switch the attention to the rest of the group, and you can ask them, hey, what are your thoughts about what is being said regarding topic X? We don't have to go into the conflict because we help smooth it over quite a bit. And now we can give someone else the mic to help move the group towards where we need to go. So that's been really helpful to, if they feel stuck, this is how you can get them going again. Now, if you've tried coming from a third level of compassionate leadership, right? Really trying to understand how they feel, understand how I feel, how the group feels, and going into the moment to clear it out, and it didn't work, that's okay. Just take a break and meet the people in conflict. Okay, so let's take a break, maybe even end the meeting a little early, and then meet with the people in conflict. So I'm going to give you a very simple framework to navigate this, and you give each person a turn going through this. So person 1 will do the whole framework, and then person 2 will do the framework. And it's a really popular one. You might know it already. So nonviolent communication, NVC. It's pretty well known. It's used with a lot of international conferences or international meetings and things like that. So the first piece, it's of 4 pieces. So the first piece is share what they observe, what is actually happening in the situation without introducing any judgment. So for example, judgment versus observation. Judgment. John was angry with me yesterday for no reason. Okay. Still not really clear on what that means. Observation. John did not speak to me or look at me when I spoke to him. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more clear, a little bit more specific, so that we can really hone in on what was the thing itself. When we do a judgment, it makes it difficult for the other person to hear, and it also doesn't help us figure out what to change or address specifically. Share how they feel, right? So are they hurt? Are they scared? Are they nervous? Are they irritated? So what others do versus how I feel. A lot of times this is what people do when you say, hey, how do you feel? Well, I feel like you're being really rude. That's not really a feeling. That's kind of a judgment about the other person. So we want to shift it to how I'm feeling, right? The person who's sharing their piece, what I observed, and this is how I felt. I felt confused when you didn't respond to me when I spoke to you, right? So this is putting it on me rather than the other person, because we want to be effective. We don't need to be right. And so putting it on ourselves as much as possible about what is going on for me makes it easier for the other person to receive it, to hear all of this of the person's experience. So again, not like, hey, you're a jerk. I feel confused. I feel unsure, right? Putting it on the self. That's the second part. Third part, share what we need. So have them say what they need and connect it to the feeling they identified. Now, blaming versus needs. So again, when talking to people about needs, they kind of start blaming the other person. You made me angry when you didn't talk to me. Putting it on the other person. Versus needs. I need to be understood when I'm speaking to someone, right? What is it that the person needs? And it's okay if this isn't specific, because that'll be the next step. But get a sense of what I need to be understood. I need to be respected. I need to be considered. Whatever that is that you're looking to go more towards. again, you're sharing this with the person. And then the fourth part is, okay, now let's get specific and have them make a request, not a demand, not an expectation, but a request. A very specific request addressing what they're asking from the other person. So general is, I want to be treated with respect. Well, we can say that that's a need, but I don't know what that really means or what that really looks like. And that'll look so different from one person to the next. So let's get more specific and say, when I am talking to you, can you reflect back what you heard so I know you understand me? Right? That's an action that you're asking the person to take rather than a generality of how you want them to be. We're going in the specifics here. So that's the fourth part, is you have them make a request. And then the other person gets to respond. Okay, well, I don't know if I could do that, but I'm willing to do this. How does that feel? Okay, that works. So now you kind of get a back and forth dialogue of that. And then the other person can go, sharing their observations and how they felt and what they need and their request. So it's a really nice format to use when navigating conflict. A couple of side notes about this piece, especially in corporates, right? Depending on the culture, it may not feel appropriate to ask what people are feeling. It just might not work well in a corporate culture. That's okay. Don't throw this out. Deconstruct the model to still get the thing that you're looking for. So I often ask these questions just with an individual when I see something that could cause a conflict or could start causing a conflict. So a lot, like, let's say a lot of people are talking at once and this person's raised their hand, but that person just jumped in and that person's jumped in. I pause and say, hey, folks, I saw Susan raise her hand a while ago. And so I'm sharing my observation of what happened. So that rather than, people start getting upset or feel like I'm calling people on random, I'm sharing the observation. Feeling, right? So someone's talking about something and you could feel a lot of like frustration or energy coming from them. And you can ask, wow, okay, with all that, how does that feel? Oh, it feels so annoying. Okay, what is annoying about it? And then we go into it. Need, especially when people kind of ramble on about something that's happening for them and it's not really clear what they're saying, but you can tell that they're frustrated and they want something, but they're not asking for anything. This is a great moment to just ask, hey, I don't really understand. So can you just tell me what it is that you need? And as a side note, with the need, I've had it quite a few times when I ask that and just start seeing tears. Or I ask that and they're like, I don't really know what I need. Okay, cool. Well, let's figure that out together. Right. So that's one of probably the more powerful ones I use, is asking people what they need. And it really helps people get perspective like, oh, okay, let's actually figure that out together. Request. And then something's happening. So I can then make a request like someone might be talking and then they get interrupted. So I can say, hey, pause. Can you pause real quick? I just want to hear what Frank was saying. Can you just let Frank finish what he was saying? So you can make requests in the moments to help navigate a situation so conflict doesn't occur or to dramatically reduce it. So again, if the whole model is too much, deconstruct it to take what you can use and use that, or use a couple of pieces of it. It's a really good model, so don't worry about it. Don't try to use it exactly as is. Lego it and take the bits and pieces and find the way that it works best for you and your team. All right. Now, things got pretty bad. All right. They got into a really hard argument, and there's just a lot of tension after the meeting. This is where a lot of times people will avoid, or they'll just tell someone what to do, or they'll have the person make an apology, and yet there's still the tension that's there. Sometimes it doesn't feel sincere. There's a lot of things that we do that don't really fully resolve the conflict in a way that it's fully cleared and then people can show up fresh. A lot of times it's like half resolved, half thought of, and then they're working together, but that's still in the back of their mind. So there's a really cool thing that we can do to help try to get rid of all that tension. and let's focus on repair. Not just an apology, but repairing the relationship itself. So what you want to do is you're going to meet with each person individually and talk out the experiences with them one-on-one. We're going to give them, each person, the foundation so they can build the repair with the other person. So with repair, you got to set them both up for success so that when they come together, they have something of what they can actually work on. So let's dive into it. First part, when you meet with them, let them vent, give them a couple of minutes to share. Don't let it turn into a whole venting session. It's easy to get stuck on that. We just give them a couple minutes to clear it out, and then we start shifting to the next piece. So just a couple minutes, not the whole session. Have them then own everything they did. What did you do? What was your part, right? Let them know that it does take two to tango, and working with them to understand what they did that got the other person upset. So me, I didn't do anything. I mean, I was perfect. I was an angel. I mean, everyone was blessed to have me there. Okay, let's pull it in. Maybe when you told Frank that his idea was trash, that might have not been a really good move, right? So you want to help them own what they did and specific behaviors instead of generalities. Because they're like, oh, I mean, I guess I was a little annoying. What was it that was a little annoying? Let's get specific. So you're working with them for them to own what they did specifically. And then you're going to have them work to imagine the impact this had on the other person. Help them understand the impact their behavior had. We want to help them build empathy from for the other person. Try to get them to understand, not deny, not realize. We want them to understand the other person's experience. Like, oh, I guess when I told him that his idea was trash, I could see how that could get him frustrated. Or, when I started yelling, I guess I can understand that would make someone feel really uncomfortable. The action the person did, we want them to try to identify what was the impact that had on the other person. You don't have to get it perfect. You don't have to get it right. But what you do want in this moment is to help them have a beginning understanding of how this happened to them and what it was like for the other person, right? Which is twofold, which you'll see in the later, but a big part of it is just to start building empathy for the other side. Because a lot of times in conflict, people stick their heels down and they don't want to move. So starting to build empathy for the other person helps to start with the repair. And then what are things that they're willing to do differently, right? Have them come up with specific behaviors they will do next time to prevent the conflict from happening and supporting the other person, right? It's not, I'm going to treat them with more respect. It's more, hey, when I disagree with them, I'll ask them questions. And then I'll also ask if it's okay for me to challenge their ideas. So coming up with a list of specific behaviors they'll do differently to support the other person. Okay, so make sure you do that with each person. Okay, so person one has all that, person two has all that before they meet. All right, now they're about to meet. Once they have the foundation, we get them meet and have them go one at a time. So first they own what they did. No buts, no ifs, just share what they did. Like, hey, when I yelled at you during the meeting, I got really loud. And we want to be careful, like, I yelled at you, but it was because you did this, right? None of that. Or I yelled at you, but I wouldn't have if only you. None of that. This is what I did to you. Period. That's it. Then they're going to share the impact. When I did this, I imagine that made you feel unheard. I imagine made you feel ignored. And we're saying I imagine because we don't know, right? Because we don't know how the other person feels. And so we can't say this is how you felt because that'll get people's defenses up. We use the word I imagine because this is showing that I am I am thinking and trying to feel into what happened for you, but I also know I don't know, and that you're the person who actually has ownership of what happened to you and what you feel about it. So I imagine you felt ignored. I imagine you felt disrespected. You just share what you imagine the impact to have been. Ask them at that point, then you ask, did I miss anything? When this happens, did I miss anything? Quiet, let the other person share, and you just stay quiet, right? That's not the time to be like, well, if only, or no, I didn't. Just listen and learn from them of their experience. That's it. Then share with them what you're willing to do to move forward. I will ask more questions. I will stop interrupting you. Very specific behaviors that that person will do to help move the relationship forward and make it really clear. And then ask the person about these actions. Is there anything you like to change? How does that feel to you? You know, if I stop asking you questions and I stop interrupting, how does that work for you? Right? You're trying to get their perspective on it. Once you get that, then you repeat the process for the other person. So because what also happens in conflict is that people are just going on top of each other. In this, with repair, we want to give each person the time to really get taken care of, to really feel heard, to really feel considered, to really feel like, oh, okay, we're actually going to do something and I've been fully acknowledged and I have a clear sense of what will be different. Okay, great. And then we move on to the other person and do that for them. This has been so helpful when trying to get people to repair relationships. This is way beyond I'm sorry, right? This is way beyond, yeah, okay, I'll never do it again, right? Or like, oh, yeah, you were right. This is really diving into clearing the conflict out, right? Rather than half-assing it and then there's still that tension behind us. So this is what really helps set up the path for repair. Actions that are willing to demonstrate empathy and avoid causing harm to the other person again. And then you can continually check in and make sure that these things are being done. All right, folks, let's summarize everything that we went through for this. So first piece is to normalize conflict before the meeting and tell them what you'll do, right? So really prepare them for conflict, letting them know that's normal. And then in the moment, you can pause the conflict, tell them how this is impacting you in the group, affirm them, and then succinctly get them to mutual understanding. Other piece is practicing the nonviolent communication model. So what did we see? The observations. How did we feel? What do we need? And the requests. And again, we don't have to do it exactly as this. You can deconstruct it and take a little piece of this and a little piece of that. And then the last piece is creating repair, not just apologizing, not just saying I won't do it again, but really repairing the conflict, repairing the relationship, clearing out all the stuck emotions and getting to really progress the relationship moving forward in a positive direction. Own what they did, share the impact, ask if there's anything they missed, share what they're willing to do differently to move forward, and check on in. So these are the things that you could do when in conflict. Try to prevent it or normalize it so that you can move forward. When it happens, a nice model of how to engage it in the moment. And then if it gets really bad, how do you repair so the conflict doesn't stay with the group of people, so it doesn't stay with the team, so you can clean everything out and move forward. All right. Before you go to the next video, we don't want you to just binge all these like Netflix. We want you to pause, take a moment and reflect on how this differs from the ways you currently manage conflict. What would it feel like if the person who hurt you shared what they did, shared the impact they believe it had on you, and presented specific actions of how they would do better? It's much more meaningful than just an apology. It's much more meaningful than I won't do it again, right? So what would it feel like if someone really hurt you and they did all of that work to really try to repair, right? That's the beauty of this. And if you're up for it, Please share your reflections in the post under the video. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.